Oh, you know what that music means, folks. It means TV talk. It's Friday, and you are with the Ayn Rand Center UK, where we talk about critically acclaimed and or interesting shows on television from an objectivist perspective. Sometimes we make comparisons to Atlas Shrugged characters, the objectivist philosophy. Sometimes we don't get there. Sometimes we just end up talking, plot and characters and sort of get lost in that and our personal opinions. If you notice, we are one person shy. Jennifer Bouani was on the Prometheus, the ship in 1899, and is now lost in the vortex somewhere.
She's stuck.
She's stuck.
Yeah, she's stuck in an alternate reality.
Stuck in an alternate reality. So she really took the movie quite seriously. So we have to praise her for that, but we're going to miss her absence. But I have my usual partner in crime, Jack Schumann, here. What's up?
Hello and welcome to Movie Phone. How are you doing today, Mark? And what did you think of this show?
I'm very tired because I've been working, but work is good, so it's a good tired. And the show, I heard a lot about the show. I heard so much about the show that I feel like I built up some expectation. And oftentimes it's not a great idea to go into a show with a big expectation, especially as a sci-fi horror fan, as I am. That's my favorite genre.
Now, was that as a result of me, or did you hear this from other people as well?
Might have been some of the Supernatural fam that were really talking up 1899. You got to see it. It's awesome. Oh my God, check it out. Now, these guys did a previous, these guys, Baran Odar and Jante Friese, these, I think they're both from Germany. They did a previous show that's 3 seasons long called Dark, supposedly incomprehensible, but very much in the mind-bending realm of 1899. So when I came into it with expectations of being wowed, I have to say that it's a slow burn at first, even though the mysteries are seeded very early on, and there's some interesting components to those mysteries. I really dropped off after episode 2 and had to pick up the entire thing over the last 2 days. The good part about that is I think I remember more about the plot, even though this is a really circuitous, crazy plot with tons of characters, all of whom are not really what they appear. So they have histories that you sort of get into through the course of each character sort of discovers their own plot line, so to speak, as they're traveling through this mysterious ship. And so luckily, because I've just seen it, I remember more of that than I do if we take a couple of weeks between showings. So there's that. One of the interesting things that I found about the show that has nothing to do with anything that people see so much is the production of the show itself. It has the distinction of being the first television show that was produced in this sort of LED sort of format where the camera is creating the virtual reality as they are filming it, as opposed to, sending the stuff away to be done in post by, CGI experts. This stuff is happening in camera. I think they did Avatar that way. And so that gives that's a special gift for actors who in the past would have to sit in a green room with a tennis ball for a focal point and imagine whatever it is that's happening, and they'd be quite surprised at the outcome when they see in CGI what the thing actually looks like. Now you actually can see it in the camera in playback, which I think is a boon for actors. I think it'll be very interesting. And plus, if they're creating sets almost entirely in camera, that's I can see that as being great for production costs all the way down the line. So I wanted to toss it back at you before I talk about Baran and Gente's sort of inspiration for this piece, which I thought was interesting, convoluted, but somehow made a little bit of sense. I'm not sure what yet, but I wanted to get your first general impressions of the show.
So it was interesting because I've seen it twice now, because I saw it back in January, maybe actually, no, I remember I saw it when I had COVID. And it was kind of one of those, I binged through it, but then there was a lot of it that I forgot. What I remembered was that I liked it. I liked some of the themes that they brought out, and I had completely forgotten the end. And I was having a conversation with my a friend the other day who I recommended watching, watch this. And he was like, yeah, but in the end, when she was on the spaceship, spoiler alert, everybody. And I'm like, what? I had completely
Oh, that's
forgotten.
you. You got a memory like me.
I had totally, I'm like, I need to watch that again. And then when I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, this like makes a lot more sense now. And I thought that one of the things I really thought was cool about this was all the different languages, and that I still followed it, even there were subtitles, but what I thought was really cool is that the actors are reacting to other people not speaking the same language as them, but they're able to just like project. You kind of know what they mean, and sometimes they're both having their own separate conversations, but sometimes it ties together. I thought that was really cool and well done, the way that they did that.
I have to say something about that, because one of the creators talked about that handling all those various languages was very difficult for Final Draft. Apparently, the note section of Final Draft, they actually, in the Hollywood Reporter, suggested that Final Draft improve its note sections, because their script, of course, had English translations along with some of the other languages. I think the creators are German, so they didn't need that, but they certainly needed Portuguese, Spanish, and French, and which they said was, and Cantonese, of course, which they said were too fast to follow, even with the phonetic scripts that they had. And what they wound up doing was listening to the language more as music. And I've always thought of very good musicians as, in effect, speaking a language through the music. That's you relate to it in the same way. And that enabled them to sort of overcome the Tower of Babel experience that you would think that they would have, not knowing what anybody is saying. And the actors themselves didn't speak some of these languages, so they're sort of in the same boat that the creators weren't. I did find that interesting, and that's sort of a throwback also to their original idea for this piece, which has something to do with what was going on in the European Union at the time. But isn't something always going on in Europe that's
I was just reading that.
Bizarre?
Well, okay, so I was just reading Yante Friese actually is saying the idea and the spark for it happened years ago. It was originally from a photo that they found. They were doing research for something completely different.
Yeah.
Don't remember what the research was for, but we stumbled upon a picture of a man in a white shirt covered in blood with a hammer in his hand and a really weird look on his face, standing on top of what looked like an old boat.
Yeah, I love that. That was their first inspiration. I like that. I think that's a good note for writers.
Oh, the refugee crisis. That's what it was.
That's the refugee crisis.
Yeah, at the same time, the refugee crisis was happening in Europe around 2015-16, and it was a very unstable phase. They were afraid of what was going on. It felt like Europe was slowly breaking apart, like every country was doing its own thing. Okay, I see how that kind of builds into it.
How weird. Federalist system that like we're used to in the United States is bizarre, I guess, to people in Europe. But there is something to the idea of cultures clashing, cultures not being able to adjust to one another. How do these cultures that are now suddenly thrown together react when these various obstacles and emergencies are actually happening to them? And so you can see how the refugee crisis, the way Europe dealt with it, and the way the captain and the various principles in the show deal with it, sort of, you could see, I guess, a similarity now that we're putting it in that context.
Yeah, I can understand that. So what did you think of what did you think of how they dealt with ideas? What was interesting to you about that?
Well, I mean, I don't think they dealt with ideas in an extraordinarily original way. I mean, to say that everything is a simulation and then to refer back to Plato and talk about the allegory of the cave, it's nice to hear people actually referring directly to philosophy in a piece of television that's supposed to be mostly entertaining and a mystery that you're supposed to solve. But I think the things that they say about perception are not anything that aren't within pop culture. Like pop culture is telling us that what Kant told us, what Plato is telling us, that you can't really know things. You don't really know
reality. Yeah, you just know all that you're basically, like, for those who aren't familiar with the allegory of the cave, all of us regular plebeians basically are sort of chained up in a cave somewhere, looking at a wall, and there's a fire burning, the fire of, presumably reality burning behind us, and all that we can see of reality are the shadows on the wall. And it's really the philosophers who are, philosopher kings, who can actually ascend the cave and truly know reality. And that's why we should put all of our trust in philosophers and to tell us what reality is.
Yeah, so we have this version sort of being pumped out there. This, you either can't know reality because there's another world of forms, another universe of forms that you can only, I guess, attain through pure thought. It's not in tangential, it's not connected to reality. Or you have what Kant's version, where consciousness as such keeps you from touching what's real and knowing what's real. So to me, that stuff isn't new. I find it actually a little pedestrian at this point. Maybe it was interesting and groundbreaking 10, 15 years ago. I mean, when Matrix came out, I mean, that idea that you're in a simulation, right, was sort of extraordinary and cinematically interesting. And there were some, I think there were some aspects of that, creating your own world, your own reality, that were, I think, viable, something that a normal person could take home without ingesting the rest of the poison, that could, be very helpful to them. But they're even using modern, I mean, I guess because it takes place, it's really in the future. They're using the concept of constructs, which we hear all today. Everything is a construct, and they're going with it. Not, there was a bit of protest from the husband, right? The main character, one of the main characters, who's a doctor and a very good actress, English speaking actors, ends up finding out that one of the people who artfully is written as a potential villain. I like the way they throw out,
yes,
a lot of red herrings. There's a lot of red herrings. The person you least expect to be the bad guy is the bad guy. The two people you think are like, Dracula and his minion, are not the monsters. They're actually part of her family. And it sort of has that Orpheus sense where, somebody is sort of descending into this reality to pull their love up from hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which I like that sort of mythological element to it. But he's the only guy who provides a one sentence alternative to the allegory of the cave, which is, no, what you see is real. What you touch is real. It's here. It's right now. Your senses perceive things that happen. It's not your brain firing and making you think that these things are happening. They're actually reacting to stimulus from the outside. You have one sentence in favor of that, and then the rest is all about, mental constructs and being lost in this self-constructed maze. And of course, you're given tons of red herrings about who constructed that maze and why that this internal world has been constructed the way it is, until, of course, the end, where you potentially meet the actual villain, who from pretty much the very beginning is an absentee character, but very much strongly felt in the piece, but thought to be a heroic character trying to help. So I like that. I like the fact.
Who are you talking about here? Are you talking about the woman or her brother?
Brother.
The brother, who at the very end, when he types that message to her, So we find out that this whole boat thing has been a complete simulation that has taking place in space. Now, at first, we're led to believe that she has created this simulation as a replacement to, or as an inability to deal with the death of her son, because her son has
Her
died.
son is terminally ill. Oh, died. I thought
I
he was
believe he
sick.
died.
Okay, died. Okay, so I
I
thought he
bel-
was terminally ill, and she wanted to trap them into this simulation so that he never dies, so to speak.
Well, I guess it
But I
works
could
out
be
to being
wrong.
the same. Either he's dead or he's terminally ill, but she created the construct to keep him healthy in there, to keep him healthy and alive in the world that they've built. But did
And
she
that's what
create?
Dad said. That's
That's
what
what
Dad
Dad
said.
said. Yeah, that's what Dad said. But is that true? Or is this really a product of the mastermind of his brother, of her brother?
I really think we have to hear from people in the audience, anybody also who saw Dark and was able to figure it out, because apparently it was sort of incomprehensible to tons of people. Yeah, well, see, the brother says something very interesting, which I can't tell whether it is a warning of bad things to come, or actually it gives the lie to the father. The father is the actual villain because the brother is trying to help her, because in the computer he says, "Welcome to reality." Now,
Mhm.
what is that? What does that mean?
It's very like Morpheus boating, right? Like when Morpheus welcomes Neo to what the real world is like. I think we're meant to. I don't think it's an accident. I'm sure that they meant some of those Matrix parallels. But yeah, and the sad thing about this is that Netflix canceled the show after the first season. So hopefully, and they were
So we're not
really.
going to.
We're not
So
on
we're not going to
Netflix.
see.
Hopefully they'll find another network to put it on. That's been happening. I'm noticing that a lot lately. Netflix cancels something and then Apple TV or somebody else will pick it up. So
Yeah,
it'll be
streaming services provide a great income for actors who, before it was you did a show, even as early as like 2012, 2013, you did a show and you kept checking Cancellation Bear, which was a site that tells you about how shows are doing and then predicts what shows are going to go and what aren't. You keep checking Cancellation Bear, hoping to Dad that your show is going to get picked up, and to see that it doesn't, or it does, is very much of an emotional challenge. And nowadays, show gets dropped, another one picks you up. It's great. It's great. I think this show. I think that it could have a fan base to get picked up by a Freevee or an Amazon. I don't see why not.
I think so too. It got like a 7.1 or 7.5 on IMDb, which is pretty respectable. We've got some super chats, so let me get through a couple of those. Catherine Cassia.
No, that's only 90. That's 93,000 people that got it to that 7.4. So that is respectable, I think. But it's still fans, and it could be fans of Dark. It could be fans of the guys themselves, the creators. There's all kinds of stuff that can go into that. I'd be interested in seeing what Rotten Tomatoes would say about that. I'd like to hear critics' perspectives.
Yeah, we can actually look that up. But all right, so some super chats. Catherine Cassia for $4.99. Thank you. Scaredy cat when it comes to horror. Waited for this discussion to see if I will watch it. How? I didn't find this. I really didn't even find like a lot of jump scares in this. Did you?
No, it's more like it's like you're in a
psychological
game.
Thriller. Yeah.
It's like you're in a game, but not a horror game. Sort of it would be like a sort of a Silent Hill without monsters, or something like that, where you're in this strange world. You're trying to figure a way how you got there, how to get the hell out of it, or like an Alan Wake. If anybody's ever played that game, G-rated, but very interesting, crazy little game where, a guy's trying to sort out sort of the same alt universe stuff. So I would watch it, Catherine. If you can stay awake through parts of it, I think you might enjoy elements of it.
Yeah, I agree. My recommendation as well. Kiana Pellegrino for $5, just showing support. Hi, Dad. Hi, Jax. And smiley face. Hi, Kiana. Thank you.
Yana, how come you did not watch 1899? That's what I want to know. Probably too busy.
Uh, maybe she'll reply in the chat. Allie Beard for $2. 1899 will not be renewed for season 2. Yeah, that's on Netflix. I do hope that it does find another home. Mary Aline for $2. Thank you. Have y'all ever reviewed Fauda? We have not, but we've talked about it.
We have not, but I think I've only seen the first 2, maybe 3 seasons, and I did like that a lot. And I would certainly go back and review those because they were a thrill to watch. You liked it too, huh?
I liked it. I saw the first season, and then I stopped. But from what I saw, it was great. And I've also just finished watching Tehran, by the same creators, that focuses on a female Mossad agent in Iran, which is really, we love those strong female heroine characters, and that was a fantastic show.
I mean, that takes more cashews than I would have, that's for sure. But to be honest with you, you don't have to be Mossad to be badass, a woman in Iran. They are the ones that seem to be driving the liberty movement as far as I can see over there, and they are awesome.
Yeah,
I can't say enough about them. And I think women here who can bitch and moan about pretty much everything in America should look to them for guidance and inspiration, because they are truly oppressed.
yeah,
they're standing in the face of a real patriarchy,
right,
that doesn't feel any compunction about stoning them or cutting their heads
literally risking their lives, yes. Marilyn for $3 again, giving us fist bumps. Thanks, Marilyn. Somebody asked a question. It's not a super chat, but I'll answer it. The Abandoned Road asked, Jax, the photo behind you looks like lunch on a skyscraper, but it's not. Which is that? The photo behind me is the building of the Waldorf Astoria from 1930 as they were constructing it, which happens to be what was the whose inspiration was the Waldorf Astoria for a very famous book, A Hotel in a Famous Book?
What's that?
Who's the which famous book had a hotel in her book that was inspired by the Waldorf Astoria?
Is it Rand? I don't know.
Yes, it's Rand. It's the Wayne Falkland. It's the Wayne Falkland Hotel is modeled after the Waldorf Astoria. So, but I would like to mention that I got this before I even knew that, because I just like the picture.
And well, there are no snowflakes on that beam right there. That was back in the days when they could actually build the Empire State Building in something like a year.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. So Catherine for $1.99 is taking our recommendation, saying thanks, I'll watch it. Thank you, Catherine. That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I liked it. I'm not as like gaga over it as some of the other shows that we've done. It wasn't one of those. It was one that you kind of had to like get into and devote time to. I loved the acting in it, though. I thought the acting was really good. I liked the stories of the characters, their own, even though this whole thing is a simulation, they've got very intricate, life stories.
Any favorite one?
Any favorite story? Oh, that is a good question. I really liked the story of she was Korean, right? Trying to pass herself off as Japanese.
I think she was Chinese trying to pass herself off as.
Or was she Chinese? Okay. Oh, you're right, because they were saying they were speaking Cantonese. I really loved her story. And I loved just that, like that. It was like a weird meet cute between her and the I think he was
Polish.
Russian.
The Polish.
Oh, he was Polish.
Yeah.
I loved the chemistry there. I also really liked the relationship between the French woman and the other Frenchman, Jérôme, I think. who had sort of come back to get his vengeance on the man who, her husband, right, who totally sold him out.
I liked that storyline as well because I thought it was one of the more complex ones. Because Emily Beecham's, story that she's the one who plays Mara Franklin, the doctor. You don't quite get to the bottom of her story, I don't think, but you sort of do see, the fraudulent lieutenant who marries the trophy wife to get everything that he wants, and you get behind the scenes and you find out that all of that is, as I just said, a fraud. He actually betrayed someone and set that guy up to be a deserter, and while he walked off with the riches, and they meet up on this ship. At first, that's what made me feel like this was some sort of hell or purgatory for a while, because nobody was what they claimed they were. Everybody was running away from something that they had done, and I thought, is this where they reconcile? They come to terms with whatever it is that they did in their former lives. Did you ever get the feeling at first that it was a sort of
I started wondering if it was going to be like the dark ship version of Fantasy Island, where everybody, like, they come there and there's a reason why they're there. They all have something that they have to get through. You certainly get that impression, because there's not a happy character really in that story, and like there's some kind of tremendous conflict or burden that every character, every story is dealing with.
I mean, the Dutch story was incredibly intense, right? You have a Dutch family that's a woman. The matriarch of the family is having, I guess, a psychotic break, where she's very religious and thinks she's hearing the voice of God. The brother was a repressed homosexual who had a relationship, I guess, with the landowner's son, who ends up shooting him in the face and then raping one of the daughters in front of the entire family as payback, until she's able to get away from him by killing him, by murdering him. I mean, they're very intense. There's some very intense, dramatic scenarios, just riddled with sin and complexity, that could make you think that this isn't just a simulation. This isn't just a game. This is like some extra metaphysical realm.
Right. But that's actually what's really interesting about that, is that it really is, the expression like, oh, you couldn't make this stuff up, right? You can't, but in a sense, that's exactly what they've done, is they've made all of it up. And so they've gone sort of almost melodramatic, right? They've gone almost melodrama when it comes to all of these stories, which could also be like a sure sign of a simulation, because, it was like every story was just epic, right? There was an epic reason for every story. Nobody was on there just for, buying passage and having a good time or having a minor conflict. Everybody had a major epic shit to deal with.
So, like, I want to know why that particular loop they're on, which seems terrifying and awful. It's like having a nightmare over and over and over again. Why that? And why are they in those pods in the spaceship? At least in the Matrix, we got the skinny, right? Okay, well, these people are being tapped because they're more or less energy sources, and this is what keeps the Matrix going. Is they keep you in this dream state, but you're this reality here, but you're really powering the Matrix itself. We never get a sense of why is the brother doing this if he's actually doing it? Why are they in these pods in a dream state, going through this particular dream all together? And are they? Do we know this? We don't know yet until they all come out of the pods and wake up, I guess.
Yeah, and I think if it was just that this was all in her construct, it's so hard to say her name, Moira. If this was all just her construct, that's not as interesting to me. because it's kind of like, well, why should I care? In a way, this is, like, sure, she's got an interesting story. But what was great about The Matrix is, why you should care, because we're all battery cells, right? The whole, like, we are all affected by it. And so I'm hoping that if it does get picked up by another streamer, something like that will be revealed. Some kind of what is like, I don't know if we want to call it a threat to humanity, but what is, what is the big life consequence here for whatever is happening? So yeah, I thought, what'd you think of the music? That's what I was going to ask you about.
So that's an upshot for me. Not the music through the piece, but the way each episode ended was on a piece of sort of classic rock or pop,
right,
that and anybody would know. And ironically, I didn't start to notice it until The Wizard. Do you know that song by Black Sabbath?
How does it go? You'll have to sing it.
It starts out with a harmonica. I
know I've heard it.
Anyway, that's when I started to. I didn't notice it before. Maybe I was sleepwalking through some of the episodes, but then after that, I was like, well, they paid Black Sabbath and Ozzy some significant bucks, I'm sure, to put that on. I want to see if they do that with everything. And then there was Cat Stevens and David Bowie, and every episode, and Jimi Hendrix. It's like every episode ended with something really cool.
And it all started with Go Ask Alice, right? I love the intro on the
yes.
They did such a great cover of it. This was probably, I would say, I'm really impressed when the music ties in so perfectly to storyline. And I thought this one, because every song at the end gave you basically a summary of what that episode was.
It did. It was a great punctuation point to each end. Hold on. Here it is. Let me see.
Are you playing it? I can't hear it.
Can you hear it?
No, you have to play it louder, maybe. Put it close to your...
No?
No.
Listen, okay. Hold on.
No, Mark, I can't hear it. I'll bet nobody else can hear it too. Hold on.
You guys are missing out on some cool rock and roll.
Okay, what's it called? The Wizard?
Wizard. Now, yeah, that was on, I think, the first Black Sabbath album called Black Sabbath, with the creepy green-faced girl on the cover. That's an album cover that gave me the creeps for like 20
hold on. Let me see if I can play it. I can't play anything.
Well, anybody
can you hear this?
Nope.
Hold on. You can't hear it?
That's weird. It's weird. Daniel, why is this happening?
Okay, I'm gonna go da-na-na.
Okay, wait. Daniel can play 15 seconds. Daniel can play 15 seconds for us. So yeah, let's hear 15 seconds of Black Sabbath. Wait for it. Oh, that's it? Oh man, just as I teased the gotta wait for it. Oh. We needed a whole band to kick in. Okay, so yeah,
that's gonna be our new thing. Is we'll instead of the Wednesday dance, we'll headbang for we'll headbang.
We sort of do at the beginning of every show, right? We do the Wayne's World thing.
We try to get in sync. I was trying to get in sync with you this time.
Yeah. So I mean, so overall, I think it's an interesting show to watch. It talks about metaphysics and epistemology. I think it gets it all wrong, but it's a challenge for you, I think, as an objectivist to challenge these concepts of the simulation of reality, the inability to perceive reality, the inner construct of reality, all of these things that are sort of popular now. And sort of the mainstream, if you're dealing with mainstream intellectuals like Sam Harris, these guys, are all in their heads. They think it's all here. They don't think there's really much out there. So, and a lot of the theories that I think bind woke culture together and ground it, are, so to speak. It's not really grounded, but it's based on the idea that pretty much all of our concepts are constructs in our heads. And objectivists wouldn't put it that way at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's good for you to watch it and ask yourself when you hear these ideas, if there is an opposing thought, is there something that makes more sense? We have great imaginations, human beings. We can weave all kinds of cool narratives about stuff. And there's fun narratives in here that they're weaving, and they go back and forth in time, and they do crazy things. It's a very nonlinear story, and that's fun. That's fun to indulge in for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's attempting to make serious points about perception and about your reality. And I think it's important for you as objectivists to challenge those premises about perception and reality. Are they right, or are we? Because you can't have it both ways. Anyway, I think
in some worlds you can. In alternate worlds, you might be able to, but not in this reality. So not in the only one that we know. And it will be interesting to see how the creators, what side they end up on. Because they could, I really do hope that we see the next season, because I like to know. Here's what I have a problem with is, like, I go along for the ride. Like, I went along for the ride with Battlestar Galactica. If you remember the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, I loved it. I was like, every episode I was loving it until the very last episode, where I wanted to burn the world down. When I wanted to just burn everything. I was so angry that was the direction that they went in. They became complete Luddites and anti-technology, and let's just start over again in nature. I couldn't, but man, I hope that the show wouldn't go in that direction. It'll be interesting though.
And also, I'm a little bit troubled by the fact that it was about various cultures dealing with each other and how they deal with each other with language barriers and cultural barriers. But there wasn't an American in the lot. Now, an American has a culture too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't just identify solely with language, though there's a lot of conservative traditionalists that are trying to take us in that route. It identifies with, I know these people hate that, but too bad, ideas, liberal ideas. And to see that in the mix would be interesting too, because that has been the most effective culture in world civilization.
Maybe in the simulation they tried it, and the American kept on breaking it.
Breaking the simulation.
Yeah. Hey, so we have a question. It's not a chat, but it's from Allie, who is a great supporter of ours. And she wanted us to know if there's going to be a Clubhouse after this. She missed most of the TV talk due to a situation. Sorry, Allie, we're not really doing Clubhouses anymore. Are you guys doing
for a long time? No, we haven't done those.
Have you guys been doing it at all for Ayn Rand Center? Any other like daily objectives? I don't know what happened to that. I liked it. I mean, it was, it took some time, but I liked being able to get on and talk to everybody, but we haven't really done it. So unfortunately not today, because I have to catch a flight out later. But I wanted to also say, like, we're trying to figure out what we want to do for the next show. We're going to be on a bit of a hiatus, I think, Mark, because do you have some travel coming up, or there was some reason I thought we needed to?
I'm here in Pittsburgh. I have a convention in New Jersey in the second week of April, I think, which I'm going to drive to, and then I'm here. I'm basically here until the end of April, and then I have to go back home and then travel.
Okay. So we need to figure out what we want to do next on the show. If you guys right now, you can drop some stuff in the chat. If you're not hearing this live, then you can leave some notes in the comments. We'll be sure to review those and we'll talk about it. We are getting from Ian, he's suggesting The Expanse. This isn't the first time that we've gotten that suggestion. I've seen The Expanse. I loved it. We should probably only do one season because I think it's like 4 seasons. It's very science fiction. But it's also based on a series of books as well. I'll have to ask Jennifer and see if she is down for it. I loved it. I thought it was one of the only science fiction shows I've seen that actually deals with space travel in a realistic physics kind of way in terms of the effect that it has on humans. When you're going like these massive, so like Star Trek, whenever they go like warp speed, whatever, they're all just like standing there and, nobody's bolted into their seats and,
Well, sometimes they do this. Sometimes they go.
Yeah. But what I liked about The Expanse is they're sitting in these special chairs, like G chairs, grab chairs, and they're getting fluids pumped in them so they don't stroke out.
That's from I don't think that's an original concept. I think that's from The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. It was very good.
I think this is based on that. Let me find
very good science fiction book that where a war starts because of comedy of errors, so to speak. One side interprets something that happens as an act of aggression, and then they go to war, and the war ends up lasting for thousands of years, but it lasts for a long time, in part because of the nature of time travel, the nature of travel and relativity. So when they go to they go through these things called collapsars, they're able to, wind up on, 150,000 light years away, in a matter of a month and a half. But meanwhile, all this time has passed, even though they've aged only 4 months, the earth and people on earth has gone through generation after generation after generation.
And that's also a throwback to Werner Vinge, A Deepness in the Sky and A Fire Upon the Deep, where their way of traveling through time is basically going into cold stasis. And then they wake up, hundreds, thousands of years later, and that's how they're able to not age. But The Forever War is not what The Expanse was made of. But there are a lot of similarities. The Expanse was its own separate book.
Yeah, they get injected with fluids too, so that their cells don't collapse or something.
Right.
And then they're in these special chairs and suits, and this stuff gets filled up with some kind of special liquid because they're pulling like 25 G's or some incredible amount of pressure and force, and to keep them from blowing up, they have to be in these special chambers for that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting. Season one of The Expanse is very different from the rest of the seasons, but because it kind of turns into it's like a detective, it's like a whodunit. It starts out, but I really liked it. But I do have to say this, I have to read off Allie's super chat for $2. Please do The Last of Us. Final episode of season 1 is this Sunday. I've been watching The Last of Us, and I gotta tell you, I'm bloody blown away.
I love it. I mean, it was a great video game when it came out. And it wasn't just great because it was scary, like literally horrifying at times. So horrifying, I would have to put down the game console and walk away because I was too freaked out. But because the characters were so filled out and the stories were so interesting and the acting wasn't bad. So you actually were watching an interactive film. Now this lacks the interactive nature, but it's actually deepening the storylines in a way that is really good. And you know what I love even more about it is it takes that idea that it puts the apocalypse on the sort of back burner, and it makes the monsters they're sort of a backdrop. Every once in a while they come in, but the human stories, and I don't mean this even in the
Yeah.
way that Walking Dead does it, where Walking Dead is like, the irony is that the monsters are the people sometimes, and there's the zombies there that they have to contend with, but the real people, they really have to watch out for this other, other tribes of folks. Here, there's that element, but there's also these incredible dynamics between human beings, where even in one episode you get an incredibly deep relationship fleshed out so entirely that you feel
Yeah.
like you just lived an entire life with that person. And there's not a lot of TV shows that can do that very effectively, and to do it in a sort of horror sci-fi genre, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be at the top of our list. I have to check with Jennifer to see if that's something that's kind of, I don't know if she goes for like the kind of, I wouldn't really call it gore, but it's just, the what are they called? The clickers, right? The infected, that can be a little scary, but I love it. I love the relationship between Pedro Pascal and the girl who he's protecting. And yeah,
and that's part of the beauty of the game as well, is to watch the relationship, watch them grow close over time, and watch him become more of a father to her over time. That's really beautiful. Those kinds of stories, father stories, always get me, so
yeah,
this
yeah.
is sort of what that is in essence. And so I like seeing protectorship.
And I'm watching it with my daughter, and she's like, it's kind of a trope, right? The whole like the father, like father figure and child and daughter. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, but it works. I'm like, there's a reason why it's a trope, or there's a reason why, these things work, and why why they appeal to us, why the stories of a father who's not really the father, but finally, sees in this girl that he's protecting, it becoming a really good father-daughter like relationship. So we love stories like that. We saw that in a little bit in Station 11, right? We saw that with that was they all work. But anyhow, oh yeah, and then Christopher Smith, alias Lost. I'm not sure if he means Alias the show, Alias, or
Alias the
Lost.
show, Alias, and then or Lost.
And Lost. Okay. And then God of War, Peaky Blinders. Yeah, I love Peaky Blinders as well. So we've got some things. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, yeah. Mark, you did. All right. So
It's
we've
got
got
Anya Taylor-Joy.
huh?
Got Anya Taylor-Joy in it too, so I have to see it.
Yes. Yeah. And this was, I think, this was before she did what was the chess one that she was in? I can't remember it now. The Queen's Gambit. This was before she was in Queen's Gambit, I think. So we've got a few now that we'll talk about, and then we'll figure out dates of when we're going to do it. I think I don't think we're going to do. Have you done a Game of Thrones favorite season review? You haven't seen Game of Thrones. Neither has Jennifer. I tried to get her into it.
My wife and I tried to watch about 7 or 8 episodes, and she flipped it off. She wasn't into it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I loved Game of Thrones. Season 5, just to answer God of War's question, season 5 was probably my favorite. GOT. All right. Well, we've got some good stuff. You have any other final thoughts here, Mark, on 1899 or anything in general?
No, just challenge the narrative, folks. Challenge the narrative. I thought we had more in this episode than I expected we would.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we always think, we'll just keep it short, and then 3 hours later. But it's too bad both of us don't like to talk at all.
I know, right? Well, folks, that's it. So that's our assessment of 1899. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will let you know what show we're going to be reviewing next and when that's going to come up. So stay tuned. This has been TV Talk, brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK. Mark Pellegrino here, Jack Schumann there. We will talk to you later. Peace.
Bye.